All right, I'm really excited today to dive really deep into Dynasty. You could actually say we're diving into Devi football here. I'm going to tell you the top 15 future Dynasty superstars that some of them you probably don't even know about. If you are playing in Devi football, you might know about them. Otherwise, I think you'll really enjoy just getting to know these names as the college football season approaches. You'll be able to connect with some of these players and watch them dominate at the collegiate level. Do me a favor, I have a like goal of 150 likes. With your help, I believe we can get there. All you crazies who are just deep into Devi probably are the ones who are watching this video. But I'm gonna go ahead and rank them by tiers. I'm gonna talk about 15 players. And I think just to get out of the way here in tier 1, I've talked about these players a ton. If I remember, I can link it in a video where I go in depth on them. But I feel like most of us in Dynasty would know a lot about these three names by now. Right now, if you're looking at Devi rankings, you have to put Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Drake May in a tier of their own. Now you could have May ahead of Marvin Harrison if you want. Who knows what will happen from now until next year. But those are the three big names that look like they are locks to be top 5 picks in the NFL draft this time next year. Generational players, generational talent, no question about size or toughness or IQ or anything. These guys look like absolute franchise pieces to NFL franchises. So let's go tier 2 downwards, and now we'll start talking about some players that maybe you might not know. And as we go down into tier 6, it'll be even deeper into players that you probably don't know too much about yet. But here in tier 2, this would be I guess you could say my RB1 in Devi football rankings. That would be Nicholas Singleton. I know that sounds crazy. You're like, wait, what about some other names that you've been talking about? In Devi football rankings, I believe that the best future running back in college football right now is out of Penn State, and his name is Nicholas Singleton. We're talking about a 5-star recruit. He was the #1 running back in his class. This is a big body, 6 foot 224, big strong frame, and it shows up on film. I feel like this 2023 class, there were so many questions about size and what roles that a player could have at the next level. When you look at Nicholas Singleton, this is a 3-down big body that you could hand the ball to. I mean, even today, if a team could somehow get Nicholas Singleton on their NFL roster, he could handle 25 carries like yesterday in the NFL. He's that good. If you look at what he did in 2022, by the way, as a true freshman, check this out. Of all running backs in college football who had a minimum of 100 attempts, he was 9th in yards per attempt at 6.8. He was 26th in rushing touchdowns with 12. He was 3rd in yards after contact per attempt. He had more yards after contact per attempt than Bijan Robinson, Kendre Miller, Jahmyr Gibbs, Quinshawn Judkins, and Blake Corum. This dude was difficult to bring down. And he had the #1 breakaway percentage of any running back in college football who had a minimum of 100 attempts. What is a breakaway play? Essentially, that is the percentage of your carries that went for more than 15 yards. 59.9% of the time this kid got a carry in the backfield, he was taking it for more than 15 yards. The dude is explosive. If you watched the Rose Bowl, you would have seen him run for 87 yards and a touchdown. He is an absolute monster. If you're looking for a pro comp, I know it's early, but it's hard not to see a lot of shades of Nick Chubb. The way he gets through holes, the way he's kind of striding to his top speed, how he can evade tacklers. It's really interesting to see the similarities. I'd love for you guys to let me know if you see something different, but there are so many similarities there. Hey, if you are watching this video, I imagine you're a pretty deep into Dynasty person. You probably might be interested in Devi football. I just wanted to let you guys know that there is a new resource for Devi football content. I have started my own channel where I will be covering Devi content. Lots of videos coming on that channel. In fact, I'm going to be doing even deeper dives into positions. I'm going to go deeper into mock drafts, positions, rankings, steals in your drafts, things like that. So If you are interested in Devy football, check out the pinned comment and go ahead and subscribe to my channel. You'll be seeing the first video here this week. Okay, the second player I would have here in tier 2, I've talked about on this channel a little bit. That would be Raheem Rocket Sanders out of Arkansas, the running back, 4-star recruit. This is like Nicholas Singleton, a huge body, 6'2", 227 pounds. There's a special combination of power, vision, burst, break tackle ability, and versatility. It makes him truly a complete running back in the 2024 class. Obviously, it's way too early, but right now he's projected to be a second-round pick in the NFL draft and the 33rd overall pick. So a very high second-round pick is what a lot of people in the industry who do mock drafts are giving him. In 2022, check out these numbers that he put up. Over 1,450 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per attempt. I'm going to tell you why that's very special. He had 10 touchdowns and also 27 receptions, which is a great number for a running back in college football. He had the 4th best yards per attempt amongst all running backs in college football who carried the ball 200 times. So you know that with the volume, he is also wildly efficient. That's great to see. A better yards per attempt than Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Blake Corum, Tank Bigsby, Quinshawn Judkins. He was uber efficient. And that 6.5 yards per attempt number is even more impressive when you realize he did it versus the best defenses in college football on a weekly basis. He played in the SEC, saw the best that the college football world has to offer from defenders, and he still was absolutely dominant. Honestly, if you're looking for a pro comp, I know it's early, but his ceiling comp for me, I feel like we're looking at like a Zeke Elliott type of player with what he can do in the NFL. Okay, and we'll have a couple of Ohio State teammates here to finish my tier 2. We're talking Emeka Egbuka and Travion Henderson. Emeka Egbuka, 5-star recruit, the #1 wide receiver in his draft class. He joins the great lineage of Ohio State wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Terry McLaurin. Last year, 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Really smooth route runner, consistent separator, knows how to get open versus zone and versus man, has a great catch radius, very good after the catch, reliable hands, and he has the size to play everywhere. What don't you like about wide receiver Emeka Egbuka? If I'm looking at a pro comp, I see some shades of like Michael Crabtree, a young Juju Smith-Schuster, Chris Godwin. Think of what young Juju meant for the Steelers and how he operated after the catch, or Chris Godwin in his breakout prime years. That's what we could be seeing with Emeka Egbuka soon. And as far as Travion Henderson, he is the running back out of Ohio State. He's entering his 3rd season. This was one of the biggest hype names in his recruiting class. He was a 5-star recruit, currently projected to go into the 1st round. Loved his 2021 film. As a freshman, this dude looked like a lock to go top 20 in the NFL draft. Now, he had some issues in his 2nd season in 2022. He had a broken foot in his bone, which absolutely impacted his efficiency, his numbers. You can see in 2021, look at those ridiculous numbers that he put up, not only on the ground, but also in the air, almost 20 total touchdowns. And then as a sophomore, obviously the efficiency is down and the numbers are down. I could easily see myself moving him right back up ahead of Raheem Sanders in my rankings. All I need from him is to return to that 2021 form. If he does that, he's a lock to be one of those top 5 players in rookie drafts next year. And I do believe he'll be a crucial part of this offense. All things point towards him coming back and having a great year. Okay, so look, if you are in a tight end premium format, then you could put the next guy in tier 2. I'd be so okay with that. If you're not in a tight end premium format, this is where I would put Brock Bowers. Now, I've talked a lot about how rookie tight ends very rarely gain value in their 1st season. So when we're talking about Devy football, it's really difficult to put too much value on the tight end position. In fact, in my top 50 rankings, my Devy rankings, I think I have 3 tight ends. That's it. Brock Bowers is an incredible athlete. He is unquestionably the best tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts. Some people are going to say they prefer Kyle Pitts, and I can see where they're coming from. I still prefer Kyle, but if you look at some of the names that he compares to athletically, shout out to Campus Canton for this information. He compares really well to the names of Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Jared Cook, Darren Waller, all superstar tight ends in the NFL. And if you look at what he did last year amongst tight ends, he was first in receiving yards, fifth in touchdowns, fourth in yards per reception, third in yards per route run. He had the most of the position. He was fourth in yak per reception. He had the fourth best contested catch percentage, and he had the third most first downs. This dude is going to be a production monster in the NFL, and he's got great versatility. 60% in the slot, and then the rest of that is shared out wide and in line. So he's virtually a lock to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Again, where you rank him is all going to be dependent on your format if you give a premium to the tight end position. Okay, the other player that I would have here in my tier 3, a lot of you guys would know this name, and I would love to talk about the context and the background of his recruiting process, but let's talk about Quinshon Judkins. Zach Evans was supposed to shine last year at Ole Miss, and I still think he played really well. I'm a Zach Evans guy. I really did love Zach Evans. But you can't unbiasedly say that Zach Evans was better than Quinshon Judkins, because Judkins was a monster last year. He was the running back to lead that backfield at Ole Miss. So he was a 3-star recruit, but I think oftentimes we put a little too much emphasis into what a player was in Devy when it comes to their recruiting class. Lane Kiffin is like the GOAT of finding steals in a recruiting class. He was the only big school head coach who was at this guy's games watching him play in high school. He found a steal. He told nobody about it. And I'll tell you what, Judkins dominated as a freshman. He put up ridiculous numbers, over 1,500 yards on the ground, 5.7 yards per attempt, and 16 touchdowns. As a freshman, out of 168 running backs in college football with a minimum of 100 attempts, he was 7th in rushing yards, 10th in rushing touchdowns. He had the 13th PFF run grade. He had the 8th most yards after contact and forced the 7th most missed tackles. He had more rushing yards and missed tackles forced than Blake Corum, Kendre Miller, Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby. If we have to nitpick, if I have to, the only thing I'd really love to see him improve on is what he does in the receiving game. He had 15 receptions last year. I'd love to see that number get to 25 or 30. However, he has everything in his power to be a complete workhorse running back, and he's likely going to be a first-round pick himself. Okay, here in tier 4, I think from here downwards, we're getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit, but players that you may or may not have heard of. In tier 4, give me Evan Stewart, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. There's a couple wide receivers I'm going to talk about with you guys for the rest of this video that are so fun to watch on film. Evan Stewart is one of those guys. 5-star recruit, the #1 recruit in his entire recruiting class at the wide receiver spot. He is a natural receiver. Some guys you put on their film and you say to yourself, that guy was born to do exactly what he's doing. That's Evan Stewart. He was born to play the wide receiver position. He's a track and field superstar in high school, really special athlete. You see that on film. Very twitchy as a route runner, has a foundation in his route running ability to be a nightmare to cover in the NFL. And he's a little bit of a smaller guy, okay? He's 6 foot, 175 pounds, but honestly, he plays like he is 6'4", 200. Like, this dude does not play like he's 175 pounds. While he's a small receiver, incredible hands, ridiculous body control and ball tracking skills. I can't help but compare him to Devonta Smith. I can't help it. It feels like the same player. And I know I talked about Jordan Addison last year. I liked him, but I felt like he wasn't as good as Devonta Smith as a contested catcher. Evan Stewart is just as good as Devonta Smith as a contested catcher. At least he was in his true freshman year. I would argue that Evan Stewart is showing that he's even better after the catch than what Devonta Smith is. So very good comp for Devonta Smith. I would say there's a very good chance he becomes that type of player in the NFL. Last year, at the age of 18, guys, a true freshman, he led Texas A&M in receptions and receiving yards. So this dude could be on track to have an incredible career, not only in college, but at the next level. Okay, that is it for my tier 4. I think he's in a tier of his own. But in tier 5, let's talk about Malik Neighbors, the LSU wide receiver who shined last year instead of Kayshon Boutte. He's a 4-star recruit, could be in line to be the next great out of LSU. 6 foot, 190 pounds, and he has the size and versatility to play all over the field. This is an X factor yards after the catch type of player. Really good body control. You can just throw the ball up in his vicinity with that catch radius. He's probably going to bring it down. Very good separator. There's a lot of what you really want to find from a wide receiver on film is, can they manipulate a defense and can they get separation in multiple different ways? Malik checks those boxes. Last year, over 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns, in what was a really strange transition year for the LSU Tigers. I think Malik Neighbors could be a legit Blitnikoff Award finalist with Jaden coming back and him linking up. So I'm a big fan of him. I think he is going to be a first-round pick in next year's draft. Okay, now we'll talk about a guy who isn't eligible next year. I think he'll be eligible in 2025, I believe. And I will just say, I believe this is probably the most exciting player to watch in all of college football right now. And it's from somewhere that I used to live. I mean, no need to keep you guessing. How about we talk about Luther Burden III, 5-star recruit. He was the number 2 wide receiver in his class, only behind Evan Stewart. Great size at 6 feet, 208 pounds. We've got a dual sport athlete. In high school, he played basketball, and you can see some of his basketball background when he's going up for those one-on-one balls. But he is an exciting guy to watch. Last year, at the age of 18, like Evan Stewart, he contributed to a ton of his team's offense. He actually contributed to 24.7% of his team's total receiving offense, which is more than enough to give him a breakout age of 18. We love to see early breakout ages for our young receivers. If I had to give you a pro comp, I really don't think there is one receiver that he reminds me of. There's like different parts of his game that reminds me of certain players. I see a little bit of Amari Cooper with his catch radius. I see a little bit of Jamar Chase with his route running and after the catch. I see a little bit of Deebo Samuel when he's in the open field. Impressive elusiveness, explosiveness. In short, you will be calling Luther Burden him on Sundays very, very soon. I'm a big fan of his, very, very big fan. Okay, and the last player in this tier, let's talk about running back Trey Benson. This is a player that I have been getting a ton of stock of in Devy drafts. I feel like he's being super undervalued, but one of my biggest breakout candidates here in 2023, transferred from Oregon to Florida State before the last season. Big body, insane explosiveness. He breaks tackles at an elite rate, which we'll talk about, and he has very good speed, all at 215 pounds. So this is a complete running back that we were talking about. I told you that he was an elite, he was elite at breaking tackles. Check this out. Last year, Trey Benson forced 79 missed tackles on 154 attempts. Bijan Robinson forced 104 missed tackles on 258 attempts, meaning Trey Benson forced a missed tackle 51% of the time. Meanwhile, Bijan forced it 40% of the time, 11% more for Trey Benson. Now, the context is super important because Benson didn't see anywhere the volume that Bijan did. So we'll have to see what he does this year. But my point is, he is very impressive. He's very hard to take down. If you look at his season last year, he was 13th in yards per attempt, 6th in yards after contact per attempt. He forced the 6th most missed tackles despite sharing a backfield, had the 3rd best breakaway percentage. He was the #1 rated running back in elusiveness according to PFF, and he had the 11th best PFF grade. Better yards per attempt than Bijan, better yards after contact than Bijan. Just a true special athlete at the running back position. Okay, in the last 2 players we'll talk about here in tier 6, I am super excited to tell you about this quarterback who could be a superstar in the NFL. He's out of Penn State, and his name is Drew Allar. Okay, Drew Allar, I think Allar. I'm not sure. I could be saying it incorrectly. But we've got a 5-star high school recruit the number 3 player in the entire class, number 1 at the quarterback position. And please do not let this photo fool you. He looks like a small, really polite man who has no dog in him, right? But that is not the case. This dude is 6'5", 243 pounds. Remember, we were talking about Bryce Young this last year. His size concerns was a 5'10", 5'11", almost 200 pounds. We've got Drew at 6'5", 243. He is lined up to start this year for the Nittany Lions, and he will be a sophomore at the age of 19. This kid has some special, rare arm talent. I mean, he can zip the ball like a bullet out of a sniper rifle. It is really special to watch. And he shows great pocket presence, big, strong frame. He's not afraid to hang in there. And I actually could see him being utilized in the NFL like Josh Allen. Get ready. This might be the first person you're hearing this from, but you're going to hear the name Drew Aller compared a lot to Josh Allen in the next couple years. Anywhere inside the 10-yard line, that big, strong frame, he can rush for a touchdown. I think it could be a nightmare. I mean, think about it. At 243, he's bigger than most running backs in his own backfield. So we'll see how he handles his first year as a collegiate starter. But if he meets his potential, we're talking about a top 10 pick potentially in the NFL draft. I believe he'll be eligible in 2025 or 6, but yeah, he could be a face of the franchise guy in the NFL. And the last player to be in the top 15 rankings for me in my Devy rankings is Donovan Edwards. I've talked about him a lot on the channel. 4-star recruit, 6'1", 204, insane versatility, juice on every single touch, extremely elusive in the open field. He doesn't have the speed that Jahmyr Gibbs does, but some of the reasons that we all fell in love with Jahmyr Gibbs are going to be some of the reasons that we fall in love with Donovan Edwards. Very similar type of players. I also see a little bit of shades of like an Alvin Kamara when you watch his film. And honestly, why couldn't Blake Corum just declare? Because he took from us an entire year of Donovan Edwards being this nightmare every single touch, but I'm not hating on him. I'm just like, couldn't you declare? But Donovan Edwards in 2022 to 2023, he was 3rd in yards per attempt. He was 28th in yards after contact per attempt. He had the 5th best breakaway percentage, and he had the 12th best yards per route run. That's out of 168 running backs in college football with a minimum of 100 attempts. Big fan of his game, and I think the NFL is starting to look for profiles like a Donovan Edwards, like we saw with Gibbs this year. So hey, if you like Devy football, if you want me to go in depth into, let's say, the top 20 quarterbacks in Devy football, the top 30 running backs in Devy football at the wide receiver position, if you want mock drafts, if you want a community to talk about Devy, then go ahead and subscribe to my new channel. I will link it in the description. I'm very excited about dropping my first content over there. And feel free to let me know if you have any questions. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. All up. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.